this video, we're going to learn about something called flashes. Have you ever been on a website and you save something or you try to log in and either something successfully happens or an error happens? And what they do is they just redirect you to either a new page or another page. That's great because what you can do is you can sort of just put the user where they were or where they need to go, but you can also show them a little bit of information at the time. Here I've said, successfully created your store, care to leave a review, and then we were to redirect them to the page for that store, or maybe a page that lists out all of our stores depending on what we want to do. Now that's called a flash, which is essentially, I don't want to redirect them to a page just to tell them something, but on the next time that they load a page, I want to send them a little piece of information and display this flash message up here. Then the user can either refresh the page to dismiss it or click an X and have it gone. So how does that work? Well, let's go down here. Let's go to our create store. And the way that you set a flash is you simply type request.flash. That's the method that we have there. And why is that flash available to us? Well, if we go back to our app.js and we take a look at our middleware and search for flash, you're going to see, here we go, app.use flash. And what that's using is this flash middleware, which will give us a method called flash. And then the next time that we actually view our page, we're going to have those flashes available to us. So we go back to our stroke controller here, and flash takes two things. First, the type of flash. So it can be success, it can be error, it can be warning, it can be any type. You can make up your own categories. What I like to do is stick with those three: success, warning, and error, or I think info is another one that we could use. And those will just all line up with CSS classes on the other end. So we're going to do success. And then when that successfully happens, we're going to say successfully created. And I'm using backticks here. So notice how they're not single or double quotes, backticks, so I can use the ES6 interpolation. Notice that's a $sign because this is JavaScript, not a pound, which we use in Pug. And you just say store.name, and we'll say care to leave a review. So let's double check that that works. Before we redirect them, we're going to flash that data. So let's go and add a new one. We'll say test, add a couple items here, give it a save. And okay, good. Now before we're redirected, we flash it up and we see selectly created test. That was the name of the store, care to leave a review. So we can also say request.flash. Actually, we can do this on the home page rather than having to submit a new one every time. So let's go to the home page and we'll say request.flash error. We'll say something happened. I think there's info and warning and success. I think those are the four, maybe three. Let's double check. So give it a save. Go to your home page. You'll notice that nothing pops up, and that's because this is the same request. We flash it, and then we also render it out. And these flashes only get sent on the next request unless you explicitly pass them. I'll show you how to pass them in just a second. But in this case, we flash it, and then we redirect, which is considered a second request. So here now, if I refresh again, you see, there we go. We got our error, we got our info, we have our warning, and we have our success. So those are all the infos that we have. And what I've done, how is this actually happening? Well, a couple things. First of all, let's open up our app.js and go back to some of our middleware. Let's scroll down to line 54, where it says app.use request response next. Remember, this is middleware. And what we do is we say response.locals.flashes equals request.flash. And what that will do is it will pull out any flashes that need to be shown. So again, here you do the flashing. Here on the next request, it will pull out the flashes. And then what that will do is it will put them in your locals. Now, what is locals? Locals are all the variables that are available to you in your template. So we have this variable called flashes. Now, if you go to our layout.js, say layout.pug, and go down to right here, scroll all the way down to block messages. Here we have some code that says if there is locals.flashes, so if there are flashes, then give ourselves a div with a class of flash messages. Then what that will do here, let's do a quick dump of the actual data. And the way that you can dump something is you give yourself a pre-tag and you set it to h.dump and you pass it locals. Let's just pass it local. So where did that dump come from? Well, remember we had that helpers.js file. And here we have that dump file. And all this will do is allow us to just visually view a JavaScript object on the page. So go back to our layout. We're just dumping it and refresh. See, this is all of the information that's available to us in our locals. So we have some settings about what port it's running. We have some information about our menu. And then here we have our flashes. This is the actual data. So let's just dump locals.flashes. And you see that we have an object, and then we have a key for every type of flash that we've created. So when we visited that page, we had an error, info, warning, a success. So those are the 4 types of flashes. And you can make any type that you want. You could probably make one called Wes. And when you refresh this, you'll see now there's a category called Wes. Obviously, it's going to be white because there is no styling associated with that. But what we're doing in our layout.pug is we are using object.keys to get an array of error, info, warning, a success. Then we loop over each of those categories, error, info, warning, success, and we loop over each of the flash messages that happen inside of that, right? Because if we had multiple errors, we'll say another thing happened. We'll do a third one. Oh no. So now we should have 3 error messages when we refresh the page. There we go. See, our error has something happened, another thing happened, and oh no. So this layout.pug is going to loop over each of the messages in that flash category of error. And then we are simply going to export a flash, which is this div. It's going to have a class of flash -- category. So if you inspect this real quick, you see this one has a flash error, flash info, flash warnings, flash success. And we put the flash message in there. Now, this is a little bit different. This is because if your flash message contains some HTML, this will embed the actual HTML. Let me show you that real quick. So if I had like a strong tag around thing, now you see thing is actually a strong value. And if you didn't have that in your layout.pug, if you simply just said equals, what that will show us is the actual text strong, whereas we want the bang equals, and that will parse the HTML as HTML. And then I have a button where I have an inline event listener in JavaScript that just says this.parent.remove, and that will just remove the element from the DOM whenever you click the actual X. So that's what flashes are. They allow us to show information on the page. We use a middleware in order to pass those flashes to our locals. And then in our layout, we check if there are any flashes and we show them on the page if there are any flashes to show. And that will only work if you use sessions, because the whole idea of sessions is that you can save data from one request to another. Otherwise, your application is stateless and there's no real way to pass data from one request to another. So what we want to do here is we've got our success. We can remove all of these other flashes that we have here. And we'll double check that it works. We'll go to add. We'll try test another one. Oh. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I love bread. Try add a few. And actually, one more thing we want to do before we submit this is we don't want to redirect them to the home page. We want to redirect them to the actual store. So let's change this to backticks /store / we want to redirect them to the store.slug value that has come back. Now, there's a little bit of a problem here because this store here only has the actual 3 pieces of data that came in. The slug is auto-generated. So what we want to do is actually modify this a little bit so that we can wrap this in parentheses and call .save on it immediately. And then we can await that. And we'll sort of do it all in one go. So we create the store, call save, which returns a promise, and we're going to await that. And the response from the await will be put into our store variable so that we can then access the generated value, which is the slug. So I'll give that a save, and we'll come back here. And what should happen is that when I save it, it should redirect us to /store/testing-123. Let's give it a save. There we go. It says /store/testing123, successfully created testing123, care to leave a review. And then it brings us to a 404 page. Why? Because we haven't yet set up the route in order to handle /store/testing123. That's fine. We'll come along to that in a couple of videos.